3 weeks ago, Ruby Martinez could still taste the sweetness of that moment. She gripped the phone so tightly her fingers turned white. "You're hired, Ms. Martinez. Welcome to Blackwood Enterprises. The salary is double what you were making at your previous company." She had screamed so loud in her tiny Brooklyn apartment that Mrs. Chen banged on the wall complaining. But who cared? Finally, after 3 years of cleaning offices, she'd landed a position with the cleaning company that served the millionaires of Manhattan. The salary would pay off her debts from the college she'd dropped out of. Maybe there'd even be enough left over for that interior design course she dreamed of taking. It was perfect, absolutely perfect. Now, you did what? Ruby stared at Ginger, the cleaning supervisor, her eyes wide. Around them, the Blackwood Building's penthouse suite gleamed with Italian marble floors and panoramic Manhattan views. A view Ruby could barely appreciate in that moment of pure panic. "I had no choice," Ginger whispered desperately, her chubby cheeks red with anxiety. "Melissa called saying she's stuck at the Chicago airport because of the blizzard. She's Mr. Blackwood's personal assistant, and he has a crucial meeting in 40 minutes with Japanese investors. If he finds out his assistant isn't here, you'll be fired," Ruby completed, feeling her stomach twist. "We'll be fired. The entire team. You know what he's like." Ruby knew. Everyone knew. Dashiell Blackwood, 32 years old, youngest CEO on Forbes, owner of a tech empire valued in the billions, and according to gossip, Manhattan's most impossible boss. He'd already fired 6 assistants in 8 months. "Ginger, I clean bathrooms." "I don't know anything about being an executive assistant." "You have a college degree, don't you? You completed 3 years of business administration before dropping out." "That doesn't mean I can—" "Please." Ginger grabbed her hands. "It's just for today. Just today. Melissa comes back tomorrow morning. You only need to stay close to him, take some notes, serve coffee. How hard can it be?" The private elevator emitted a soft ping. Both women froze. "He's coming." Ginger frantically removed Ruby's cleaning uniform, revealing underneath a simple white blouse and black pants that, luckily, looked minimally professional. She shoved a tablet into Ruby's trembling hands. "The password is 2409. His schedule, contacts, everything's here. Smile, be efficient, and for God's sake, don't contradict him." "Ginger, I can't—" The elevator doors opened. Dashiell Blackwood entered the penthouse like a storm dressed in Armani. Tall, broad shoulders, angular jaw that looked carved from stone, ice-colored eyes that swept the environment with a predator's precision, perfectly styled black hair. He was absurdly handsome in an almost irritating way. And he was on the phone, his deep voice cutting through the air like a blade. "I don't care if his flight was delayed, Marcus. I want the presentation on my desk in 15 minutes, or you can start cleaning out yours." He hung up without waiting for a response, and finally, his eyes landed on Ruby. Ginger had already vanished like smoke. Ruby swallowed hard. "You're not Melissa," he said, not as a question, but as an accusation. "No, sir. I'm—" Her mind went blank. What was the name Ginger had said? Ruby. Ruby Martinez. Temporary. Assistant. Those icy eyes examined her from head to toe. Ruby felt as if he could see through her, see the cleaning lady she really was, see every lie, every fraud. "Temporary," he repeated, his tone laden with disdain. "Perfect. Another incompetent who'll last a week." He walked past her, leaving a trail of expensive cologne and arrogance. "Coffee, black, no sugar. On my desk in 3 minutes, the red folder with the meeting documents. And call 11 Madison Park Restaurant. Reservation for 2 at 8. Private table." He stopped, turning slightly. "Can you handle that? Or do I need to draw you a picture?" Something hot and irritating rose through Ruby's chest. Maybe it was panic. Maybe it was anger at being in this absurd situation. But she raised her chin. "Black coffee, red folder, reservation for 2. Understood, Mr. Blackwood." A muscle tensed in his jaw, as if he wasn't used to being answered without stammering or fear. 3 minutes, Ms. Martinez." When he disappeared into the office, Ruby looked at the tablet in her trembling hands. What had she just done? Ruby found the coffee maker after opening 4 different cabinet doors. Her hands shook as she pressed buttons, praying she wouldn't somehow burn down a penthouse worth more than her entire neighborhood. 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The red folder sat on the marble counter. She grabbed it, tucked the tablet under her arm, and practically ran to the office, the coffee cup trembling in her hand. Dashiell sat behind a desk the size of her entire apartment, his fingers flying across a keyboard. He didn't look up. "You have 10 seconds before I'm late for my own meeting." Ruby set the coffee down carefully, placed the folder beside it. "The reservation is confirmed. 8 p.m., private table." Now he looked up. Those ice-blue eyes narrowed. "I didn't hear you make the call." Her heart stopped. "I texted. The concierge line. It's faster." It was a complete lie. She'd actually called from the kitchen, whispering frantically while the coffee brewed. He studied her for a long moment, then picked up the coffee, took a sip, and grimaced. "This tastes like battery acid." "It's an acquired taste, sir." Did she just say that? To a billionaire? Ruby wanted to crawl under the desk and hide, but something impossible happened. The corner of his mouth twitched, almost like he wanted to smile but had forgotten how. "Get the conference room ready. 10 minutes. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. "And Ms. Martinez? Next time you lie to me, make it more convincing." He walked past her, and Ruby stood frozen. He knew. He definitely knew. The meeting was a disaster waiting to happen. Ruby stood in the corner of the glass-walled conference room, tablet clutched to her chest like a shield, watching Dashiell command the space. 4 Japanese investors sat across from him, their expressions carefully neutral as he presented projections, market analysis, technological innovations she barely understood. He was magnetic, infuriating, arrogant, but completely magnetic. "Ms. Martinez, the prototype." Ruby blinked. Everyone was looking at her. "The prototype." Dashiell's jaw clenched. "The tablet. Pull up the prototype design, page 17. Her fingers flew across the screen, panic making her clumsy. Page 17. Page 17. Where the hell was... There. A 3D rendering of some sleek device appeared. She walked forward on shaky legs, handed him the tablet. Their fingers brushed. His were warm, surprisingly warm for someone so cold. "Thank you," he said, and it sounded like a warning. The meeting continued. Ruby tried to become invisible, which was impossible when one of the investors kept glancing at her with polite curiosity. When it finally ended, after handshakes and bows and promises of future communication, Dashiell closed the conference room door. "You've never done this before." It wasn't a question. Ruby's mouth went dry. You had no idea what I was talking about. You've been guessing your way through every request." He stepped closer. "So I'll ask you once, and I suggest you tell me the truth. Who are you really, Ruby Martinez?" The way he said her name made her stomach flip. "I am Ruby Martinez. I work for the cleaning company. Melissa is stuck in Chicago, and Ginger panicked because she thought you'd fire everyone if you found out. So she asked me to fill in just for today because I have some college education and..." The words tumbled out like water from a broken dam. "I'm sorry. I know it was stupid. I know I should have told you immediately, but I need this job, Mr. Blackwood, the cleaning job. I have student loans and rent and my brother's medical bills, and I can't lose this position. So please, fire me if you want. I deserve it. But please don't punish Ginger or anyone else. This was all my fault." Silence. Dashiell stared at her like she was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You're a cleaning lady," he said slowly. "Yes. And you thought you could fake being an executive assistant for an entire day. It seemed less crazy 3 hours ago." Another almost smile. "You made it through the meeting. Barely. You didn't panic when I tested you with the coffee comment. I panicked internally. And you're standing here telling me the truth instead of running away." Ruby lifted her chin. I don't run from my mistakes. I face them. Dashiell walked to the window, hands in his pockets, staring out at Manhattan spread below like a glittering kingdom. When he spoke, his voice was different, quieter. My last 6 assistants all had impeccable credentials. MBA degrees, years of experience, perfect references. He turned to face her. Every single one of them lasted less than 2 months. Do you know why? Ruby shook her head. Because they were terrified of me. They'd nod and agree with everything I said, even when I was wrong. They'd never challenge me, never speak up, never tell me the truth because they were too busy trying to impress me. His eyes locked with hers. You called my coffee battery acid. I didn't mean it was battery acid. I know it was. I make terrible coffee. He moved closer. You're unqualified, completely out of your depth, and you just admitted to fraud. Yes, sir. And yet you managed that meeting better than any of them would have. You know why? Because you're not pretending to be someone you're not. Well, he paused. You're pretending to be an assistant, but you're not pretending to be fearless when you're terrified. There's a difference. Ruby's heart was pounding so hard, she was sure he could hear it. Here's what's going to happen, Ms. Martinez. Melissa isn't coming back. She accepted another position in Chicago. I received her resignation email an hour ago. No. No, no, no. Which means I need a new assistant. Someone who can start immediately. Mr. Blackwood, the salary is $150,000 annually, plus benefits, plus a signing bonus. He named a figure that made Ruby's knees weak. You'll work impossible hours. I'm demanding, controlling, and according to the internet, a complete bastard. But you'll learn more in 6 months than most people learn in 6 years. Was this really happening? I clean toilets for a living, Ruby whispered. And now you'll clean up my schedule instead. Do we have a deal? She should say no. This was insane. She had no experience, no training, no business accepting this offer. But that number, that beautiful, impossible number that could change everything. Yes, Ruby heard herself say. We have a deal. Dashiell extended his hand. She shook it, his grip firm and warm. Welcome to hell, Ms. Martinez. Try not to quit before Friday. Ruby's first official day as Dashiell Blackwood's assistant began at 5:47 a.m. with a phone call that nearly gave her a heart attack. You're late. She bolted upright in bed, squinting at her phone. Mr. Blackwood? It's not even 6. I've been working for 2 hours. My calendar says I have a breakfast meeting at 7. Where? Ruby scrambled for the tablet she'd taken home, her brain still foggy with sleep. The Regency, 7 a.m., with Harrison Chen from Vertex Capital. Wrong. That was yesterday. Today is Gerald Morrison from Tech Innovate, the Princeton Club, 6:30. Her stomach dropped. 6:30? But that's 13 minutes from now. I suggest you learn to read a calendar, Ms. Martinez. He hung up. Ruby stared at the ceiling of her tiny apartment, wondering if it was too late to go back to cleaning toilets. By noon, Ruby had rescheduled 3 meetings she'd accidentally confirmed for the wrong times, ordered lunch to the wrong address. Dashiell's lawyer received Thai food meant for his accountant, called a board member, Mr. Richardson, when his name was Mr. Richards, and somehow managed to erase half of Dashiell's contacts from his phone. She stood in his office, waiting for the inevitable explosion, while he stared at his phone screen with an expression that could freeze hell. Explain to me, he said with dangerous calm, how you managed to delete contacts that are backed up on 3 separate cloud servers. I have a gift, Ruby tried. His eyes snapped to hers. For a moment she thought he might actually smile. Instead, he said, Sit. She sat. Dashiell came around the desk, leaned against it, arms crossed. This close, she could see flecks of silver in those blue eyes. Could smell his cologne, something expensive and woodsy that made her thoughts scatter. You're drowning, he said. I'm fine. You're drowning, and you're too proud to ask for help. He pulled up a chair, sat facing her. Their knees almost touched. "I'm going to teach you something my mentor taught me. You ready?" Ruby nodded, not trusting her voice. "There are two types of people in business. Those who pretend they know everything, and those who admit they don't, but learn fast. The first type gets fired. The second type becomes invaluable." He leaned forward slightly. "Which type are you?" "The second," she said immediately. "Prove it. Tell me what you don't understand." So she did. Everything came pouring out. The scheduling system, the contact protocols, the difference between urgent and important, how to handle the 17 different people who called themselves his priority contacts. Dashiell listened without interrupting. Then he spent the next hour teaching her. His voice was patient, his instructions clear. He showed her shortcuts, systems, the logic behind his organized chaos. "You're a visual learner," he observed, watching her create color-coded charts on the tablet. "How did you kept drawing diagrams while I talked. Most people just take notes." He stood, checked his watch. "Better. We'll do this every day, 6 a.m. Questions, problems, whatever you need." "Every day at 6 a.m.? Ruby's voice came out as a squeak. "Do you want to succeed or do you want to sleep in? Can't I have both?" No. But there was warmth in his eyes now, something that looked almost like respect. The real test came at 4 p.m. Ruby was organizing files when Dashiell's office door flew open. A woman stormed in, tall, blonde, dressed in designer everything, fury radiating from her like heat. "You absolute bastard!" Dashiell didn't even look up from his computer. "Hello, Victoria." "Don't you hello Victoria me, you pulled funding from my exhibition." "Your exhibition was over budget by 40%. It's RT, Dashiell. You can't put a price on—" "I literally just did. The price is what we agreed on, not 40% more." Victoria's eyes landed on Ruby. "And who is this? Another assistant you'll chew up and spit out?" Ruby stood, instinct taking over. "Ruby Martinez, and I don't chew easily." Victoria's laugh was sharp. "Oh, this one has claws. How refreshing." She turned back to Dashiell. "We're not done discussing this." "Yes, we are. Ms. Martinez, please see Ms. Hartwell out." It was a test. Ruby could feel it in the air, thick as smoke. She walked to the door, held it open. "Ms. Hartwell, I'm sure Mr. Blackwood would be happy to review the budget again if you can provide a breakdown of where the additional costs are coming from. Would you like me to schedule a meeting for next week?" Victoria stared at her, then at Dashiell, then back at her. "You're good," she said to Ruby. Then to Dashiell, "Fine, Thursday, 3 p.m. When she left, the office fell silent. "That was my ex-wife," Dashiell said casually. Ruby's hand froze on the door handle. "You're... what?" "Married for 2 years, divorced for 3. She runs an art gallery I partially fund. She's brilliant, impossible, and always over budget." He finally looked at Ruby. "You handled her well. I thought she was going to kill me." She thought about it. He returned to his computer. "Thursday at 3 is blocked for the Jensen acquisition. Move it." "But you said—" "I said a lot of things. You're learning which ones I mean." Ruby stood there, tablet clutched to her chest, trying to understand this man who was a dozen contradictions wrapped in an Armani suit. "Mr. Blackwood? Dash." She blinked. "What?" "If you're going to work with me every day, you might as well call me Dash. Mr. Blackwood makes me feel like my father." His fingers paused on the keyboard. "And I hated my father." It was the first personal thing he'd shared. Ruby felt the weight of it. "Okay. Dash." His name felt strange on her tongue. Intimate. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and something shifted in the air between them. Something dangerous and electric that made Ruby's pulse quicken. "Go home, Ruby. It's been a long day." She should leave. She should definitely leave. "Will you be okay here alone?" Wrong question. His expression shuddered immediately. "I'm always alone, Ms. Martinez." I prefer it that way. Ruby gathered her things and left, but she could feel his eyes on her back the entire way to the elevator. In the reflection of the closing doors, she saw him standing at his window, silhouetted against the Manhattan skyline, looking more lonely than any billionaire should ever look. 3 weeks into the job, Ruby had learned several critical things about Dashiell Blackwood. He took his coffee at exactly 6:15 a.m. He hated small talk, but loved debates. He worked 16-hour days and survived on 4 hours of sleep. He never raised his voice but could destroy someone with a single look. And every Tuesday night, he had a standing appointment that was marked private on his calendar. No location, no details, completely off limits. Ruby had learned not to ask questions about Tuesday nights. Until the Tuesday, everything went wrong. "Ruby, I need the Castellano contracts." She looked up from her desk outside his office. "They're on your desk. Left side, blue folder." "Not there." "They were there 20 minutes ago when I—" She stopped, walked into his office. The blue folder was gone. "That's impossible." Dash's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something flickered across his face. Something that looked almost like fear. "Find them! Now! I need them in—" He checked his watch. 35 minutes. What happens in 35 minutes? Ruby. The way he said her name, tight, controlled, desperate, sent alarm bells ringing. "I'll find them," she promised. She tore through the office like a hurricane. Desk drawers, filing cabinets, the conference room, the break area, nothing. She called building security, checked if any documents had been sent out for copying. Nothing. 20 minutes left. Ruby stood in the middle of the office, forcing herself to think, to really think. Where would a folder go? Who had access to Dash's office? The cleaning crew. She raced to the service elevator, rode down to the basement storage area, and found Manuel, the night supervisor. The blue folder from Mr. Blackwood's office. Did anyone turn in papers? Manuel checked the lost and found bin. There, underneath some cleaning supplies, was the blue folder. A new crew member had thought it was trash. Ruby grabbed it and ran. She burst into Dash's office with 3 minutes to spare, breathless and triumphant. Got it. But he wasn't alone. A teenage boy sat in one of the leather chairs, maybe 16, 17 years old. He had Dash's dark hair, same sharp jawline, but his eyes were softer, uncertain. "Ruby," Dash said, his voice carefully controlled. "This is Ethan, my brother." Brother? Dash had never mentioned a brother. "Hi," Ethan said quietly, offering a small wave. Ruby's brain scrambled to process this. "I'll just leave these here." She set the folder down. "No," Dash said. "Stay, please." Please. He never said please. She sat in the chair beside Ethan, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the leather. "Ethan visits every Tuesday," Dash explained, his tone softer than Ruby had ever heard. "From boarding school in Connecticut. It's our standing appointment." The mysterious Tuesday night suddenly made sense. "Cool," Ruby said to Ethan. "What year are you?" "Junior. I'm applying to colleges soon." He glanced at his brother. "Dash wants me to go to MIT. I'm thinking maybe art school." The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "We've discussed this," Dash said tightly. "You've discussed it. I've just sat here and nodded. Art school is not a practical. Not everyone wants to be you, Dash." The words hung in the air like shattered glass. Ethan stood abruptly. "I should go. Same time next week, I guess." He left before Dash could respond. Ruby watched her boss, the man who commanded boardrooms and controlled billions, stare at the closed door with an expression of complete devastation. "I'm handling this wrong," he said quietly. "Yes," Ruby agreed. His eyes snapped to hers. "Excuse me?" "You asked my opinion. I'm giving it." She stood. "He's not you, Dash. He doesn't want your life. I'm trying to protect him from making a mistake." "Like you did?" Silence. Dangerous, Loaded silence. What do you know about my mistakes? His voice was ice. Ruby should back down, should apologize, should remember he was her boss and she was way out of line. I know you work yourself to death, she said instead. I know you're in this office until midnight most nights. I know you eat lunch at your desk and you've canceled every social invitation you've received in the past month. I know you're brilliant and successful and absolutely miserable. You don't know anything about me. Then tell me I'm wrong. Tell me you're happy. He couldn't. The words died on his lips. Ruby moved closer. Ethan loves you. He comes here every Tuesday even though you spend the whole time arguing because he wants to see you. Do you know how lucky you are to have someone who still shows up? My parents died when I was 23, Dash said suddenly. Car accident. Ethan was 6. I became his guardian. Dropped out of my PhD program. Built this company from nothing so I could give him everything. The best schools, the best opportunities, the best life. His hands clenched into fists, and he wants to throw it away on art school. He wants to be himself, not your second chance. The words hit like a physical blow. Dash turned away, jaw clenched. You should go home, Ruby. Dash. I said go home. She should leave. Should let him have his space. Instead, she said, I'm ordering dinner. Chinese or Italian? He turned, surprise breaking through the anger. What? You haven't eaten since breakfast. I'm ordering food. Chinese or Italian? Ruby, I don't need… Chinese it is. She pulled out her phone. For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then, impossibly, he laughed. It was short, almost rusty, like he'd forgotten how. You're the most stubborn person I've ever met. I learned from the best. They ate in his office, containers spread across his desk like a picnic. Dash had removed his jacket, loosened his tie. Ruby had kicked off her heels. It felt almost normal. Almost like they were friends instead of boss and employee. I was engaged once, Dash said suddenly. Before Victoria. Her name was Sarah. We met in grad school. Ruby set down her chopsticks, listening. She left me 3 months before the wedding. Said I was married to my ambition. That there was no room in my life for anything else. He met Ruby's eyes. She was right. That was then. Nothing's changed. You're having dinner with me instead of working. That's change. This is still work. You're my assistant. Is that what this is? The question hung between them, loaded with meaning neither was ready to explore. Dash's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. A real, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. It's Ethan. He says, sorry for being a brat. See you next Tuesday. Maybe bring your cool assistant. Ruby grinned. I'm the cool assistant. Apparently. He typed a response, then looked at her. Thank you. For earlier. For staying. That's what friends do. Is that what we are? Friends? Ruby's heart stuttered. I don't know, Dash. What are we? He stood, walked to where she sat perched on the edge of his desk, stopped close enough that she could feel the heat of him, smell his cologne, see the silver flecks in his eyes. You're dangerous, Ruby Martinez. Why? Because you make me want things I stopped wanting a long time ago. Her breath caught. Like what? He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered against her skin. Like this. Then his phone rang, sharp and insistent, and the moment shattered. Dash stepped back, all business again. Blackwood speaking. But Ruby saw it, the longing in his eyes, the war he was fighting with himself. This was going to get complicated. The charity gala was Ruby's idea. Dash had received the invitation weeks ago, some cancer research fundraiser at the plaza, and had immediately declined. Ruby had undeclined it. You need to show your face at these things, she'd argued. Good PR. I hate galas. I know, you're going anyway. Now, Standing in front of his office at 6 p.m., Dash in a tuxedo that should be illegal, Ruby was regretting every decision that had led to this moment. "You look terrified," he observed. "I've never been to a gala." "Then why did you insist I go?" "Because you need to. I just didn't think—" She gestured helplessly at herself. She'd worn her best dress, a simple black number from 3 seasons ago, suitable for an office party, completely inadequate for the plaza. Dash studied her for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone, made a call. "Diane, it's Dashiell Blackwood. I need a favor. Emergency styling. Complete outfit. You have 30 minutes. Yes, I'm aware that's impossible. Make it possible." He rattled off Ruby's measurements, which he apparently had memorized, and hung up. "Dash, I can't. You're my assistant. You need to look the part. Consider it a uniform." He checked his watch. "Diane's sending options to the executive suite. Go." The dress that arrived was midnight blue, elegant and simple, with a neckline that was professional, but showed just enough to make Ruby feel dangerous. Matching heels, a clutch, even jewelry. When she walked back into Dash's office, he looked up from his phone and went completely still. "Is it okay?" Ruby asked, suddenly self-conscious. "It's—" His voice was rough. "You look beautiful." The way he said it, like the words were pulled from somewhere deep, made her skin flush. "We should go," he said abruptly, grabbing his keys. In the town car, they sat in charged silence. Ruby could feel every inch of space between them, could feel the heat of his thigh almost touching hers. "Ruby," he said quietly, "about the other night. What almost happened? Nothing happened." "Exactly, and nothing can happen. You work for me. It would be inappropriate. Complicated. I know." "Do you?" She turned to face him. "I know you're my boss. I know this job changed my life. I know getting involved would be stupid and reckless and probably end badly." She paused. "I also know you felt it too, that moment. So don't pretend you didn't." His jaw clenched. "What I feel is irrelevant." "Is it?" The car pulled up to the plaza before he could answer. The ballroom was a sea of designer gowns and tuxedos, crystal chandeliers, live orchestra. Ruby felt like she'd stepped into a movie. Dash's hand found the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. Professional, appropriate. So why did it feel like fire against her skin? "Dashiell Blackwood, finally gracing us with your presence." A man approached, silver-haired, distinguished, expensive suit. Behind him was a woman Ruby's age, stunning in red silk. "Senator Morrison," Dash said, shaking his hand. "You remember my assistant, Ruby Martinez?" "Of course. And this is my daughter, Natasha. She's just returned from London." Natasha extended her hand to Dash, her smile predatory. "It's been too long, Dash." 2 years, he said neutrally. "You stopped returning my calls." "I've been busy." Ruby felt invisible. Worse, she felt like she was watching something she shouldn't see. "We should catch up," Natasha purred. "Properly. Perhaps dinner this week?" Before Dash could answer, Ruby's phone buzzed. She glanced at it. A message from Ethan. "Emergency. Need to talk. Can you come to the school?" Her stomach dropped. "Dash, I'm sorry. It's Ethan. He says it's an emergency." Every trace of business vanished from Dash's face. "What happened?" "He didn't say. Just asked if we could come." "We're leaving." He was already moving toward the exit. "But the gala doesn't matter." "Let's go." Natasha called after them, but Dash didn't even turn around. The drive to Connecticut took 90 minutes. Dash was silent, jaw tight, fingers drumming against his knee, the only sign of his anxiety. "He's okay," Ruby said quietly. "If it was serious, the school would have called you." "You don't know that." "I know Ethan. He's smart. He wouldn't scare you like this unless he really needed you." Dash looked at her then, something raw and vulnerable in his eyes. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You're just now noticing." That earned her the ghost of a smile. They found Ethan in his dorm room, sitting on his bed, very much alive and unharmed. But his eyes were red. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I know I pulled you away from something important." Dash crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled his brother into a hug. A real hug, tight and fierce. "Nothing is more important than you," he said roughly. "Nothing. Understand?" Ethan nodded against his shoulder. When they finally separated, Ethan explained, "Dad's birthday, today. I couldn't stop thinking about them. Mom and Dad. And I was alone and—" His voice cracked. "You're not alone," Dash said firmly. "You call me, always. I don't care if I'm in a meeting with the president. You call. Even if I want to talk about art school." Dash was quiet for a long moment. Then, especially then, Ruby watched brothers look at each other, really look at each other, for maybe the first time in years. "I've been an idiot," Dash said. "You were right. I've been trying to make you into me instead of supporting who you actually are." He took a breath. "So here's what's going to happen. You're going to apply to art schools, all of them, and I'm going to support whatever decision you make, because you're not my second chance. You're your own person, and I'm proud of who that person is." Ethan's eyes filled with tears. "Really?" "Really." They hugged again, and Ruby had to look away, her own eyes stinging. On the drive back, Dash was different, lighter somehow. "Thank you," he said, "for making me see what I was doing to him. You figured it out yourself, with a significant push from you." He glanced at her. "You're good at that. Pushing me. Someone has to." They fell into comfortable silence. Ruby watched Manhattan's lights grow closer and felt something shift between them. Something that couldn't be undefined anymore. "Natasha," Ruby said suddenly, "at the gala, you two were together, briefly, 3 years ago. She wanted more than I could give." "Which was?" "My heart. Apparently I'd misplaced it somewhere." He turned to look at her. "I'm starting to think I know where." Ruby's breath caught. "Dash, I know. It's inappropriate. Complicated. Stupid and reckless and will probably end badly." He repeated her words from earlier. "But I can't stop thinking about you, Ruby. Can't stop wanting—" He stopped himself. "This is the worst idea I've ever had." "Agreed. We should maintain professional boundaries." "Absolutely. Nothing can happen between us. Nothing." The car pulled up to her building. Ruby should get out, should say goodnight, should not lean closer to him. "Ruby," he said, his voice rough with warning. "Just so we're clear," she whispered, "if something hypothetically did happen between us, I wouldn't regret it." She got out of the car before he could respond, but through the window, she saw his expression, war and want, and something that looked dangerously like hope. This was going to end in disaster or destiny. Ruby was betting on both. For 3 days after the gala, Dash and Ruby danced around each other like planets in careful orbit, close enough to feel the pull, far enough to avoid collision. He was professional, she was efficient. They were absolutely, completely lying to themselves. Friday afternoon, everything exploded. "You need to see this." Marcus, Dash's head of security, burst into the office with a tablet. His expression was grim. Dash took it, scrolled, and his face went white. "What is it?" Ruby asked. He turned the screen toward her. A gossip website, headline screaming, "Billionaire's Secret, Dashel Blackwood's cleaning lady Cinderella story. From toilets to top floor below it. Photos. Ruby in her cleaning uniform. Ruby at the gala in the blue dress. Side-by-side comparisons with captions like, 'Gold digger alert' and 'From rags to riches.' What did she really clean?" Ruby felt the blood drain from her face. "How did they—" "Someone from the cleaning company," Marcus said. "Sold the story for $10,000. It's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, the business blogs are picking it up." Dash's jaw was carved from stone. "Get legal on this, now. I want to know who leaked it and I want them destroyed." "Dash." Ruby said quietly. It's true. All of it. That's not the point. It's exactly the point. She stood, legs shaking. I'll resign, effective immediately. This will blow over if I'm gone. You're not resigning. Look at what this is doing to you, to your company. I don't care about my company right now. The words burst out of him, raw and furious. I care about you, about some parasites treating you like... He stopped, fists clenched. Ruby's heart hammered. Dash! His phone exploded with calls. The office phone, Ruby's phone, all ringing simultaneously. Marcus grimaced. The board wants an emergency meeting, in an hour. The conference room was a war zone. 8 board members, all speaking at once. All demanding answers, all looking at Ruby like she was a disease. This is a PR nightmare. Our stock already dropped 2 points. We look like a joke. Enough. Dash's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Ruby Martinez is the best assistant I've ever had. Her background is irrelevant. Her background is all over the internet. Gerald Morrison, the same man whose meeting Ruby had nearly missed on her first day, jabbed a finger at her. You hired a cleaning lady to be your executive assistant. What were you thinking? I was thinking she's brilliant, hard-working, and loyal. 3 qualities apparently lacking in this room. Dashel, Margaret Chen, the oldest board member, said carefully. We're not questioning her character. We're questioning your judgment. This relationship, there is no relationship, Ruby said quickly. Too quickly. Margaret's eyes narrowed. Isn't there? The photos from the gala suggest otherwise. We were attending a charity function. You were looking at each other like... Gerald smirked. Well, let's just say it wasn't professional. Ruby felt heat crawl up her neck. My personal life is not board business, Dash said coldly. It is when it affects this company. Margaret stood. We're invoking Clause 7.3 of your contract. Any relationship between an executive and subordinate must be disclosed and approved. If you're involved with Ms. Martinez, you're in breach. We're not involved, Dash said flatly. The lie hung in the air like poison. Then you won't mind if we require Ms. Martinez to undergo a formal review, competency tests, background checks, the works. If she's truly qualified, she'll have no problem proving it. It was a trap. Ruby could see it clearly. They'd find something, anything, to disqualify her. And if she quit to avoid it, it would look like admission of fraud. Fine, Ruby heard herself say. I'll do it. Dash's head snapped toward her. Ruby, I have nothing to hide. She met Margaret's eyes. When do we start? The meeting ended badly. The board gave them 2 weeks. 2 weeks for Ruby to prove she belonged, or they'd force Dash to terminate her. When everyone left, Dash stood at the window, radiating fury. This is because of me, Ruby said. They're punishing you through me. They're testing me, seeing if I'll choose the company or... He stopped. Or what? He turned, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. Or you. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning. Dash, you can't choose me. Your company is your life. Is it? He moved closer. I built this company because I had nothing else. No parents, a kid brother to raise, an ex-fiancé who left me. Work was all I had. Another step closer. And then you walked in with that terrible lie about being an assistant, and you made me laugh. Made me feel. Made me remember what it's like to actually be alive instead of just existing. Stop, Ruby whispered. Why? Because if you keep talking, I'm going to do something really stupid. Like what? She closed the distance between them, grabbed his tie and kissed him. For a heartbeat, he froze. Then his hands were in her hair, pulling her closer, kissing her back with an intensity that stole her breath. He tasted like coffee and desperation. Like every fight they'd had, and every almost moment that came before. She'd imagined this 100 times. None of those fantasies came close to the reality. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dash pressed his forehead to hers. Worst idea ever. he murmured. The worst, she agreed. We can't do this. Definitely not. He kissed her again, slower this time, deeper, like he was memorizing the taste of her. When they separated, reality crashed back in. The board, Ruby said. I know. If they find out about this, they won't. Dash, we can't hide it. And I can't be the reason you lose your company. She stepped back, even though it felt like tearing off her own skin. Maybe I should resign, before this gets worse. No. The word was absolute. You're not running. We're going to beat their stupid test, prove you belong here, and then... He stopped. And then what? His phone buzzed. Then again, and again. He glanced at it and cursed. Victoria. She saw the article. She's downstairs and refuses to leave until she talks to me. Of course, because this day wasn't complicated enough. Victoria swept into the office like a thunderstorm in Chanel. You're sleeping with your cleaning lady, she announced. This is delicious. We're not... Ruby started. Please, I was married to him for 2 years. I know that look. Victoria turned to Dash. You're in love with her. Victoria, don't bother denying it. Question is, what are you going to do about it? She looked between them. The board is circling. The press is vicious. Your reputation is on the line. She smiled. Sounds like you need help. Dash crossed his arms. What do you want? Nothing. Surprisingly. Victoria's expression softened. You gave me a second chance when my gallery was failing. Let me return the favor. She pulled out her phone. I know people, PR people. People who can spin this story into something positive. Hell, the internet loves a Cinderella story when it's told right. Why would you help us? Ruby asked. Because Dash was a terrible husband, but he's not a bad person. And because you, she pointed at Ruby, you're the first woman I've ever seen make him look actually happy. She shrugged. Plus, it'll annoy the board, which is always fun. Dash and Ruby exchanged glances. Okay, Dash said finally. What's your plan? Victoria's smile turned sharp. First, we make you two a power couple instead of a scandal. Then we prove to everyone that Ruby Martinez earned her position. And then... She winked. Then you two figure out if this is real or just really good tension. Ruby's heart was pounding. What if we already know? Victoria laughed. Then, darling, you're both in much bigger trouble than you think. Victoria's PR campaign launched like a tactical missile. Within 48 hours, the narrative shifted. Articles appeared in business magazines. The assistant who earned her place, Ruby Martinez's remarkable rise. Interviews with people Ruby had worked with, cleaning supervisors, college professors, even the investors from that first meeting who praised her composure. She's painting you as the American dream, Dash said, scrolling through the coverage. They were in his office at 11 p.m., takeout containers scattered across his desk. This had become their routine, working late, pretending the kiss hadn't happened, failing miserably at maintaining professional distance. Is that what I am? Ruby asked. Or just a good story? You're real. That's what matters. She wanted to kiss him again. Instead, she opened another file. The competency review is tomorrow. You're ready. Am I? They're going to try to destroy me, Dash. He reached across the desk, took her hand. Let them try. The review was a gladiatorial arena disguised as a conference room. 5 hours of questioning, market analysis, crisis management scenarios, contract law, financial projections, every board member taking turns trying to catch her in a mistake. Ruby answered each question, her voice steady even as her heart raced. Ms. Martinez, Gerald Morrison leaned forward. Hypothetically, if Mr. Blackwood asked you to do something unethical to protect the company, what would you do? I'd refuse, Ruby said without hesitation. And then I'd find an ethical solution. That's what he hired me to do. Think, not just obey. Even if it cost you your job. Especially then. He deserves better than a yes man. So does this company. Something flickered in Margaret Chen's eyes. Respect, maybe. The final test was practical. Manage a simulated crisis. A major client threatening to pull out, stock prices dropping, press demanding statements. Ruby worked through it methodically. Called the right people, drafted the right responses, prioritized correctly. When she finished, the room was silent. "Well," Margaret said finally, "that was impressive." Gerald looked like he'd swallowed glass. "We'll deliberate and provide our decision by end of business." Ruby found Dash on the rooftop terrace, his secret escape spot she'd discovered weeks ago. "How bad?" he asked without turning around. "I don't know. I think I did okay." She moved beside him, looked out at Manhattan glittering below. "What happens if they say no?" "They won't. But if they do?" He finally looked at her. "Then I'll make a choice. Dash, I've spent my entire adult life building this company, sacrificing everything for it. My education, my relationships, my happiness." His hand found hers. "And I'd give it all up in a heartbeat to keep you." "You can't mean that." "I've never meant anything more." Ruby's eyes stung. "That's the most romantic and stupid thing anyone's ever said to me." He laughed, pulled her closer. "You bring out my stupid side." "We should wait," she whispered, even as she leaned into him. "Until after the decision. Keep it professional." "Very professional." His lips brushed her temple. "Completely appropriate." "Absolutely." His phone rang, shattering the moment. He glanced at it, and his expression changed completely. "It's Ethan's school." The headmaster's voice was grave on speakerphone. "Mr. Blackwood, Ethan was caught with alcohol in his dorm room. Another student reported him. School policy requires immediate suspension pending expulsion review." Dash went white. "Expulsion? For one incident?" "It's a zero-tolerance policy. I'm sorry. You need to come get him tonight." When the call ended, Dash just stood there, looking lost. "He was doing so well," he said quietly. "After we talked. After I told him I supported him. Why would he?" "We'll figure it out," Ruby said. "Let's go get him." "We? You think I'm letting you do this alone?" Something in his eyes cracked open. "I don't deserve you. Good thing I'm not asking for permission." They found Ethan packing his room, eyes red, movements jerky with anger. "Don't," he said when Dash entered. "Don't lecture me. Don't tell me I'm throwing away my future. Just don't." "I was going to ask if you're okay," Dash said quietly. That stopped Ethan cold. "What? Are you okay? What happened?" "I'm fine. I just made a mistake." "Ethan." Ruby moved closer. "That's not the whole story." He looked at her, then at Dash, and something broke. "They found out about art school. The guys on my floor. They said I was wasting Dad's legacy, that he'd be ashamed of me for not following in your footsteps." His voice cracked. "So I went to a party to prove I wasn't some stuck-up legacy kid, and I had a few drinks, and someone reported me because apparently I have no real friends here." Dash crossed the room and pulled his brother into a hug. "Dad would be proud of you. So proud. Not because of what school you go to or what career you choose, but because you're brave enough to be yourself. Even though I screwed up? Everyone screws up. What matters is what you do next." Dash pulled back, looked Ethan in the eyes. "We'll fight the expulsion, and if we lose, we'll find another school, one where you can actually be happy." "You mean that?" "Every word." Ruby watched them, her heart full, and thought maybe this was what family was supposed to look like, messy and imperfect and showing up anyway. They got back to Manhattan at 2 a.m. Ethan crashed in Dash's guest room. Ruby should have gone home. Instead, she stood in Dash's living room, her first time in his penthouse apartment. It was beautiful and sterile and completely impersonal. "You don't have any photos," she observed. "Never saw the point." "Not even of Ethan?" "I see him every Tuesday." "Why would I need photos?" "Because moments matter. Because someday you'll want to remember what he looked like at 16, confused and brave and figuring out who he is." Dash was quiet for a long moment. Then, "You're right. I usually am. So I'm learning." He moved closer. "Ruby, what you did tonight. Coming with me, talking to Ethan, just being there. You didn't have to." "Yes, I did. Why?" She looked up at him, this complicated, brilliant, damaged man who'd somehow become her entire world. "Because I love you." The words fell into the space between them like stones in still water. Dash's eyes went wide. "Ruby, I know the timing is terrible. I know we're in the middle of a crisis. I know saying it now is probably the worst." He kissed her. Deep and desperate, and full of everything he couldn't say. When they finally broke apart, he pressed his forehead to hers. "I love you too," he whispered. "God help me. I love you too." Ruby's phone buzzed, then Dash's, both at once. They looked at the screens simultaneously. Email from Margaret Chen. Subject, board decision. Ruby's hands shook as she opened it. After careful deliberation, the board has reached a unanimous decision regarding Ms. Martinez's position. "I can't look," Ruby said. "Then I'll read it." Dash opened his email, scanned it, and his expression went carefully blank. "What does it say?" He looked at her and she couldn't read his face. "Dash, please, just tell me." "They want to meet with both of us. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Mandatory attendance." He paused. "Ruby, there's more. They've made it conditional." "Conditional on what?" "On us ending any personal relationship. Immediately. They're requiring a signed morality clause. If we're involved in any way outside of work, you're terminated, and I face sanctions." The room tilted. "They can't do that." "They can. And they are." His voice was hollow. "It's you or the company, Ruby. They're making me choose." Ruby didn't sleep. Neither did Dash. They sat in his living room as dawn broke over Manhattan, coffee growing cold, neither speaking, the weight of the choice ahead pressing down like concrete. "I won't let you sacrifice your company for me," Ruby said finally. "And I won't let them force you out. Dash, be logical. You built this from nothing. It's your legacy, your life's work. It's a company, you're—" He stopped, jaw clenched. "You're everything." Her heart cracked open. "Don't make me the reason you lose everything you've worked for. I couldn't live with that. And I can't live without you." He took her hands. "So we need a third option." "There isn't one. There's always one." His eyes glinted with something dangerous. "We just have to be willing to burn it all down to find it." The board meeting at 9 a.m. was a battlefield disguised as mahogany and leather. All 8 members sat like a tribunal. Margaret Chen at the head, expression severe. "Mr. Blackwood, Ms. Martinez, please sit." They sat. Ruby's heart hammered against her ribs. "We've reviewed Ms. Martinez's performance," Margaret began. "Her competency scores were exceptional. Frankly, the highest we've seen in any assistant evaluation." Ruby's breath caught. "Then, however," Gerald interrupted, "the personal complications remain. The public perception, the potential for impropriety, the distraction from business operations." He looked directly at Dash. "We're prepared to keep Ms. Martinez on staff, with the conditions outlined in our email. A morality clause, no personal relationship, strictly professional." "And if we refuse?" Dash asked calmly. "Then Ms. Martinez is terminated immediately. And we invoke our right to call for a vote of no confidence in your leadership." The threat hung in the air. They were willing to remove him as CEO. Dash stood. Ruby's stomach dropped. "I have a counter-proposal," he said. Margaret frowned. "This isn't a negotiation." "Everything is a negotiation." He pulled out a folder, placed it on the table. "Inside, you'll find documentation of every achievement this company has made in the past 3 months. Record profits. 3 major acquisitions. Client satisfaction up 23%. Stock prices at an all-time high." He paused. "You know what changed 3 months ago? Ruby Martinez became my assistant." That's circumstantial. Is it? Or is it that I finally had someone who challenged me, supported me, made me a better leader? He looked at each board member in turn. You're so worried about impropriety that you're willing to destroy the most productive period this company has ever had. The optics are that we're a company that values merit over prejudice, that we promote from within, that we believe in second chances and human potential. His voice hardened. Or we can be the company that fires a brilliant woman because she fell in love with her boss. Ruby stood. Dash, what are you? I'm making my choice. He turned to her and his eyes were full of certainty. The board is right. There's a conflict of interest, so I'm eliminating it. No. He couldn't mean, effective immediately, Dash announced. I'm stepping down as CEO. The room exploded. You can't. That's insane. Dashel, think about what you're... I have thought about it. He raised his voice over the chaos. I'll remain as chairman of the board. I'll consult on major decisions. But day-to-day operations will go to Marcus Chen. He nodded to Margaret. Your son, who's been ready for this promotion for 2 years. Margaret looked stunned. Ruby stays as executive assistant to the new CEO. No morality clause, no conditions. She earned her place here. He met Ruby's eyes. And I get my life back. Ruby's vision blurred with tears. This is ridiculous, Gerald blustered. You're throwing away everything. I'm choosing everything that matters. Dash's voice was steel. You wanted me to pick. I pick her. I pick happiness. I pick a life that's actually worth living. Silence fell. Margaret Chen studied Dash for a long moment. Then, impossibly, she smiled. I was hoping you'd say that. Everyone turned to stare at her. What? Gerald sputtered. This was a test, gentlemen. Margaret stood. We needed to know if Dashel had finally learned the most important lesson in business, that life exists outside these walls. She looked at Dash with something like pride. Your father built this company, but he died alone in this office at 52. Heart attack. Do you know what his last words were? I should have gone home. Dash's face went white. I've watched you follow his exact path. Work yourself to death, sacrifice everything, become the company instead of running it. Margaret moved closer. But today, you chose differently. You chose love, life, balance. She extended her hand. The board accepts your restructuring proposal. Welcome to semi-retirement, Mr. Chairman. Dash shook her hand, looking dazed. Gerald stood abruptly. I vote against this madness. You're outvoted, Margaret said calmly. 7-1. Meeting adjourned. Outside the conference room, Ruby grabbed Dash's arm. Did that really just happen? I think so. You just quit being CEO. Technically, I resigned to a better position. You did that for me. I did it for us. He cupped her face. I spent 15 years building a company. Time to build a life. She kissed him, not caring who saw, not caring about anything except this moment. When they broke apart, Victoria was leaning against the wall, grinning. You're welcome, by the way. You knew? Ruby asked. Margaret called me weeks ago, asked if I thought Dash could change. I told her to push him and see what happened. She winked. Looks like love won. Dash pulled Ruby closer. It usually does. 6 months later, the art gallery opening was packed. Ruby stood in front of a massive canvas, bold colors, abstract shapes, raw emotion captured in paint, and felt pride swell in her chest. He's really talented, Dash murmured in her ear, arm around her waist. He gets it from someone, Ruby said, watching Ethan nervously talk to potential buyers. After fighting the expulsion and losing, Ethan had enrolled in the Rhode Island School of Design. He'd never been happier. Tonight was his first public exhibition, and half of Manhattan had shown up. Mr. Blackwood, a reporter approached. How does it feel, supporting your brother's art career? Expensive, Dash deadpanned. Ruby elbowed him. But worth every penny. The reporter left, and Dash pulled Ruby toward a quieter corner. "I have something for you." "Dash, you already gave me—" She stopped. He was holding out a small velvet box. Her heart stopped. "Ruby Martinez, you walked into my life pretending to be someone you weren't, and taught me how to be someone I'd forgotten I could be." He opened the box. A diamond ring sparkled. "Marry me. Be my partner, my love, my home." Tears streamed down her face. "That's the worst proposal speech ever." "I know. You're supposed to be romantic. I'm working on it. The answer is yes." He slipped the ring on her finger, kissed her deeply, and Ruby felt like she was flying. When they broke apart, Ethan was watching with a huge grin. Victoria was dabbing her eyes. Margaret Chen raised a champagne glass in salute. "So," Dash murmured, "how does it feel to go from cleaning lady to future wife of a billionaire?" "Like I never changed at all," Ruby said honestly. "I'm still me, just with better shoes." He laughed, that real, full laugh she'd spent months earning, and pulled her close. "Good. Don't ever change." Ruby looked around the gallery, at Ethan finding his passion, at Dash finally at peace, at the life they'd built together from chaos and risk and love. "No promises," she whispered, "but I'll always be yours. That's all I need." Outside, snow began to fall on Manhattan. Inside, surrounded by art and love and possibility, Ruby Martinez, former cleaning lady, current executive assistant, future Mrs. Blackwood, kissed the man who'd turned her world upside down and made it beautiful. Some fairy tales started with glass slippers. Hers started with a mop and a lie and the courage to clean up her life. And they all lived messily, imperfectly, gloriously ever after. The end.